Thank you for the invitation to speak with you today. This presentation will be a nice complement to the story just shared by Radhika and Josephine, and that in this commercialization effort, the commercial entity is independent from the university. And so I'll tell a little bit about how some of the research and development in our lab at Flinders University has made the transition to commercial products and services. So this project began when we publicized some primary research. So we published papers, and more importantly, we actually did a focused media engagement to make sure that the end users in industry, government, and environmental regulators would have access to this. So that's one lesson in this story, is that if you're looking for industry partners to take on your research, they're not going to read your publications, even if they're in Nature or Science. They will hear about them just on the web. And so many times we will purposely and make an effort to make that quite visible. And in this case, we had some new materials that were low in cost that could capture mercury. Received a cold call about a challenge in Western Australia where historically they used mercury to amalgamate gold in the old state stamp mills, and these were running up to very, very recently, even this century, where you're crushing ore with these large stamp mills here, and then you capture the gold by tossing liquid mercury on the stable. And so you can imagine the tailings, these big piles of dirt right here, they contain extraordinary amounts of mercury pollution. And the idea was to test our technology in capturing that mercury. And we took on this project and intentionally defined the scope to make sure that we could do what they asked and also offer a little bit more. And at the end of that project, we were able to develop a leaching technology that removed mercury, but and could capture that, but also valuable residual gold. And so the idea would be we could present a concept where you could go into places where there's tailings contaminated with mercury, and perhaps you could self-finance these by recovering both the toxic metal and also the valuable precious metals. And over delivering on this project, this inspired the company to invest further in our research team. This led ultimately to IP assignments. So the associated patents weren't just licensed, they were sold outright to the industry partner. And Mark Bruce is on this call, and he was central into the decision making and the deal making for that to happen. And as part of that, that gave the company Cleaner Technologies the freedom and the license to operate with that in whatever jurisdiction that they wish. And that was negotiated for a flat fee, and then an ongoing research collaboration where our team would help translate that into commercial products and processes. And so that led to the purchase of intellectual property that involves materials that capture mercury. They change color, so you can sense when this toxic metal is bound to the sorbent and when it needs to be replaced. The same material can be used for oil spill remediation or as a vehicle for slow release fertilizers. And it wasn't until after that first engagement that we could explain this to the company and inspire them to snap up that intellectual property for the purpose of trying to develop it commercially. And as well as the techniques for capturing gold in the application to mining and remediation of tailings, it's also relevant to e-waste processing as well. So in order to commercialize this, the company funded our lab to upscale these key materials. So if you want to use these on a large scale, you have to make them on essentially a ton scale. So we started out in our lab literally making these materials in kitchen pots and then translating that to our first 10 to 20 kilo batches. This is with a local engineering firm in Adelaide, and this was financed by the university actually before the industrial engagement began, and this was to inspire confidence that we could actually scale these things up. And then with investment from the company to develop a new process where this can be done in a continuous fashion, we now have the ability to make this on the order of half a ton to a ton per day. And so here's a 500 kilo sample of one of the key materials that's used to capture toxic mercury or precious gold. And again, this led to further engagement and and development in partnership with the company to build up their patent portfolio, which allows them to raise more money to commercialize this and the other aspects of their mining and remediation businesses. And so all of these patents here were sold outright or fully assigned to the company. And they span a number of remediation applications, technologies for leaching gold from ore tailings and e-waste, new recyclable materials that can be used as composites for sustainable construction for the built environment, and also some high performance materials that were recently validated for rapid gold and mercury capture. And so one of the exciting things about this is that many of these materials are made from things that can be considered waste or co-products that are made in surplus by industry. So your feedstocks are very inexpensive and you can convert them into materials that capture pollution, in this case, mercury. And after this material reacts with mercury, it turns black as it approaches saturation. And so it's self-indicating for when it needs to be replaced. And this was the key material that is now made by Clean Earth Technologies. For our high performance mercury absorption system, we developed a way to coat these polymers onto a high surface area silica. And so this is ultra fast. So for example, if you have mercury that's around 200 parts per billion, you can put in a little bit of this sorbent right here, and within seconds, you remove 99% of it. And so that's important for continuous filtration where you want to purify water through a filter. This material is now being tested by a number of commercial partners with Clean Earth Technologies in Peru in a remediation project, and also in South Africa for remediation and recycling projects. So one project that's quite near and dear to my heart, and one that aligns with some of the company goals for Clean Earth Technologies, is to support artisanal and small-scale gold mining in a way that eliminates mercury. So the largest source of mercury pollution in the world is due to artisanal and small-scale gold miners. This is about 15 million people globally who use mercury to extract gold from ore. And humans have been doing this for thousands of years, and not much has changed. Mercury forms an amalgam that's very dense, so it's easy to separate from all of the other tailings that you encounter when you're trying to recover gold in a mining operation. They get this amalgam, and then to isolate the gold, they simply use a torch and boil off the mercury. So it's extraordinarily toxic for the miners. It accounts for about 40% of global mercury emissions. So this is more than burning coal. So this is quite substantial amounts of mercury that are used and released into the environment. But these miners are truly subsistence miners, so I'm not here to demonize them. Rather, we want to develop technologies that support these miners and bring them back into the formal economy, where they can get a fair price for the gold that they're actually mining, and it can provide a tax base for the countries that are otherwise deprived of that, because most of this is done on the black market. And so the idea here was to adapt some of our benign leaching technology and our polymer technology that captures gold into an easy process that requires minimal training, very low cost, and it can be portable and done without much power. So to actually trial this out, I went to the ominously named Linger and Die gold mine in the gold fields of Western Australia. So fly to Kalgoorlie, drive 3-4 hours north. We set up this system here. So we have a ball mill, which goes into a shaker table, and that can concentrate gold in the way that many of these artisanal mining operations are set up. So we can get very good grade concentrates, but that's not enough to get the gold pure enough for sale directly to a refinery or a mint, for example. So we took some of these concentrates back. We validated that we could do our leaching technique on these concentrates. So we're using relatively small bottoms, these small volumes. We can use buckets and barrels. So this is very low-tech, simple chemistry. You simply toss in the polymer that we make. So it's a simple sorbent to capture the gold. You can filter or sieve that off. And then there are various ways to break down that polymer in a straightforward way to recover the gold. And we actually get over 90% for almost every type of concentrate that we've tested so far. So the idea is we're working with the company to test a variety of ore concentrates from around the world. And the business model would be to have this financed by a philanthropic organization or a contract with the government that's interested in eliminating mercury from artisanal and small-scale gold mining. The impetus for that is the legal bite of the Minamata Convention, which is just coming to force in recent years, which governs the use and trade of mercury. And we're currently designing mobile systems where these miners, rather than processing the concentrates themselves, would sell them directly to a centralized facility that would use this technology. They would get paid. It would be processed in a manner that's environmentally sound, and one that gets good yield that would then be brought into the formal economy and presumably support a broader tax base for these developing countries that are the home to most of this artisanal mining. In Australia, we're focusing mainly on e-waste recycling, and so their goal is to build the first recycling facility that processes printed circuit boards. Currently, Australia exports all printed circuit boards overseas, and these are quite valuable. So these are things from all of the redundant technologies that we use in this card, whether it's phones, computers, and all of the RAM pin CPU units, SIM cards. All of these have quite substantial amounts of gold. And so in the first instance, in the next 3 years, we're building a pilot plant to recover surface gold to finance that operation into the future, and then go back and develop techniques to recover copper, silver, palladium, and other valuable metals, and also repurpose the plastic and fiberglass that are contained in these printed circuit boards, which really has caused a problem, and other efforts to do this. And so hopefully we'll get this off the ground in the years to come. So just some things to take away about this unique arrangement. The original engagement, it came from publicized research, so it wasn't because of a paper. It was publicity that was promoted outwardly by the university for the purpose of catching the attention of industry partners. In this case, the arrangement that worked best for us was an assignment to that company, so they had full rights and freedom to operate with this IP, so it was not a license. And in return, Flinders gets a fee and some agreement on royalties for income that results from that assignment. Importantly, for our work in research, that led to a research collaboration agreement, which gives a standing amount of funding to our lab for the purpose of taking that IP and translating it to a commercial product or service. We also have a unique arrangement where we have researchers from the company embedded in our lab, so they have academic status. They're employed and paid by the industry partner, which I think is a good way to make sure you have continual and fluid communication about milestones, goals, and business and research priorities with the company. We envision this to be a pipeline from our PhD students and postdocs that work with this company for future employment in Australia, potentially. Because of this technology, or at least in part of this because of this technology, that company has been able to raise more than 20 million in venture capital, and more than 2 million is committed to research and translation, and that's through the salaries of the researchers who are working at Flinders, the plant operation that's built in South Australia, just north of Adelaide, and also government grants, including linkage grants in the last round that total 1.6 million that keep our lab going. And so that is a unique arrangement. I'm not saying that this is the way it should be done for any type of discovery, but it's a unique partnership. And I thank you for your time to be able to discuss and share the technologies and that partnership structure. And last, I'll thank my lab, who were the ones who developed all of this fundamental technology, and Mark Bruce for his help at Flinders and the commercialization team to make this something that can be translated to real world product. And finally, thank you for your time.